what they're doing here is they are using the Amen sequence, but a sad version of it for some reason. So it sounds like a sad, some kind of sad ritual. Hey music friends, this is Davi Vasc. I'm a music composer for games, and today we're gonna listen to and talk about once again a track from Elden Ring. It's been like almost a year, I guess, since I've listened to a track from Elden Ring, and today it's Regal Ancestor Spirit. Let's go! Wow. Not at all. What I expected. Okay. Sad chord, right? What? Is this a very... This is amazing. Okay, I have to pause right here because I'm gonna ask right now, is this just a very long intro? Because we are all used to Souls music at this point, right? Dark Souls music, Bloodborne music, even Elden Ring music. We're used to it. It's usually big, very loud and disturbing, you know, big orchestras, choirs. Now, I guess I can see why you guys were recommending this one to me so much. Because unless this is just a very long intro and it's a fake out and they are actually gonna come out, hey, it's actually the Souls music that you're used to. Unless it's that, then this is very different from the Souls music that we're used to. It's mostly based on a sad chord so far, which is on par with the usual. They usually use sad chords in Souls music, but in this case here, the sad chord is more geared towards actual sadness. When you guys know that I call, you know, minor chords here, it's the actual name for this. I call minor chords sad chords to make it easier to understand for people that don't know music theory. But the truth is, the minor chord, the one that I call sad chord, it could be called also like negative chord, right? For negative emotions. So it doesn't really have to be sad all the time. Usually in other Souls music, the kind of Souls music that I was talking about, when it's super loud and intense and orchestral, they use this negative chord, this minor chord, geared more towards negative emotions like rage, madness, violence, you know, stuff like that, like danger, tension. In this case here, they are using it more towards actual sadness. There's also some elements here of this kind of shaker thing here. Seems like some tribal elements here. There's a primitive vibe all around this. You can see they are holding one single note for most of it. This. See, they keep holding this. This thing with holding one single note for most of the song, or for the entire song, it's a very good way to make the song feel primitive, because what we know today as harmony is a relatively new discovery, invention. For most of our history, we didn't have these complex chords and intervals and all these chords with meaning. we a lot of the very old primitive music from around the world used to do that a lot. Hold one single chord or one single note even, and just do, you know, stuff, do melodies on top. So that's what they're doing here, and I guess it even makes sense when you take into account the name of the track, the title of the track, because it's Regal Ancestor Spirit. I totally get the ancestor vibe from it. It sounds primitive, sounds kind of tribal. There's some like the shaker thing that I mentioned. There's some instruments here that sound ritualistic and tribalistic and kind of primitive. That's very cool. Let's see if I'll be proven wrong here. If this will actually be the entire song, or if this is actually some kind of fake out, because they do that sometimes as well. They fake us out, they make us believe that the track will be entirely like this, and then it explodes into something orchestral and intense. Let's see. And the choirs, man, the female voices. This flute, this doesn't sound like an orchestral flute. It feels like something. Oh man. A lot of solo instruments as well. The flute again. This. Wow. I was gonna say the flute, they're using, like I said, not a lot of orchestral instruments. Of course, there's strings, but they are also using instruments that seem tribalistic and ritualistic, and that sound to me like they are from specific parts of the world. I can't really identify what is this flute. I don't know what flute it is, but it sounds like it's meant to represent some kind of people, some kind of tribe, some kind of culture. It sounds, that's a good word for it, that it sounds very specifically cultured. Like it's not just a generally orchestral song. And also they're using a lot of solo instruments, which again make this sound very intimate and personal and tribal. Sounds small. Ooh. Second phase, maybe? Hold up, I have to figure out these chords, because the chords are very interesting as well. So, did you see these chords? They're very interesting. They are not, by the way, doing these exact chords, because like I said, it seems like they are going for more of a tribal kind of primitive pre-harmony kind of feel. So they're not doing the exact chords, like textbook chords like this. They are kind of making them kind of awkward on purpose, of course, but you can clearly get the feel for this kind of chord here. So they do a sad chord, right? And then they go to this, which is another sad chord. Very, very interesting, because like I said in the beginning, in Soul's music, they love tension and to do disturbing things and build tension. Here, they're not building tension at all. They are using two chords that are not tense. And in fact, this sequence here, these two chords, this is actually a well-known sequence, well-known peaceful sequence that is used in very traditional Christian music. If you've been like to a Methodist church, or even I think Catholic people do this as well. but they do it the happy version of it. They do these same chords, but the happy version of it. If you've been to one of the churches that do this, you recognize this. Check this out. They do Amen. This is the Amen sequence. It's the fourth degree to first degree. You don't need to know these fancy names, but it's a well-known peaceful spiritual sequence. So what they're doing here is they are using the Amen sequence, but a sad version of it for some reason. So it sounds like a sad, some kind of sad ritual. Now we're about halfway through the song here. I'm excited to know if there's a second phase. Maybe we're in for a surprise, or maybe this will stay like this. Either way will be surprising, actually. The blend of cultures here is so... Look at this. They do something... Oh. Second phase? Oh God. Interesting. Oh, some more movement here on the left speaker. Oh, beautiful choir. And they are still... Can you feel this constant bass? They're still holding one single note for the primitive tribal feel. Man, this is so much more intense. Okay. They are doing something here that it's very effective. It's a very effective thing to do in a fantasy game like this. And it's something that I think I talked about when it comes to Monster Hunter music as well, because Monster Hunter music does this very well. They are blending. Remember I said that the music sounds cultured somehow, but I can't really put my finger on what culture it is. It's because they're blending a bunch of cultures together. And that's a very cool thing to do in a fantasy game, because sometimes in a fantasy game you don't want really to remind people of the real world, right? It's a fantasy game. You want them to be immersed in this fantastic world. So if you, like in a track like this, if they had used a lot of, for example, Celtic influences to the point where the music sounds like Celtic music, it kind of loses the fantasy side of it. But if they introduce, like, I feel like I can hear some Slavic influences here. Like at some points it sounds like Witcher music, right? Remember the Witcher soundtrack? Some Slavic influences here. Some of the percussion, the shakers, sound kind of Native American. So they are blending cultures to the point where it becomes really, really difficult to put your finger on what exactly this instrument is, what exactly this influence is. So what happens when they blend a bunch of cultures together like this? Cultures that maybe in ancient times never ever had contact with each other. They have nothing to do with each other. It creates a new fantasy culture. This is really, really cool and a very cool thing to do in a fantasy game, because it becomes a new thing. It becomes a new fantasy culture that you can immerse yourself in. Can you hear, like, there's string instruments. A bunch of woodwinds, different woodwinds from different cultures, all blended together with the orchestra, right? And again, holding the same note to make it feel primitive, I think it's amazing. This is truly a manifestation, a showcase of the skill of the composer who did this, because usually in music we use chords a lot to build tension, to take the listener on a journey. He's building all this intensity, all this excitement on one single chord, on one single bass note that they're holding there. This is very impressive, very difficult to do, but they need this one single note to be constant underneath the track for that primitive kind of tribal feel that I talked about. It's very interesting that they are able to build all this intensity. Man, I can only imagine what this boss fight looks like. Oh, the choir, man. They're actually using chords now. Man, they're doing something really cool here. So at the end there, they started doing this. So they are finally, for the first time in the track, they're finally building tension. They're using tense chords. They're doing this. This is a tense chord. The tense chord, as the name suggests, builds tension. It begs, it requires a release for that tension. So the natural thing to do after a tense chord is to go for the home chord, which is, you know, the peaceful chords that resolves the tension, which is this one. That's what they're doing here. And this is such a textbook resolution. This builds tension so perfectly, and this releases the tension so perfectly. And with the home chord even, which is like the ultimate release of tension, the home chord gives the listener a sensation of finality, of closure, of resolution. So it feels like they're trying to convey a sensation of finality, because they keep repeating this, and the home chord gives such a sensation of rest, of coming home, of being at home, of being finished, being done, right? It's like a finale. It's like you're done. This is the end of the track. And by the way, this could be just because it's the end of the track, but I bet there's some meaning here in the lore of this boss. I'm actually not even sure if it's a boss, but come on, it has to be a boss with something this epic. And they very rarely do this, by the way. They very rarely rely so much in Souls music, very rarely rely so much on the home chord and in textbook peaceful resolutions like this, because Souls music is, as we know, usually very chaotic and tense and violent and aggressive. Man, it feels like you're done, like you're at home. It feels like the song is at rest. Oh, now they hold the home chord. Whoa. This track was suggested on Patreon by Sav the Hollow. Hooray, Sav the Hollow. And hey, I have a bunch of other videos on the music of Elden Ring over here. And over here, I have videos on all sorts of music from the Souls games. We love sharing the music from the Souls games that we love in this channel. So remember, whenever you're ready to spread your wings and go on a music journey again, I'll see you there.